Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation. This is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins. Put on a happy face, tomorrow, and the theme to The Price is Right. These are just a few of the hits written by our guest this week on Theater Talk. He's been a major force in the musical theater for over 5 decades, and we're so pleased to have him here. To introduce him, my co-host, Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
I have to say that Charles Strouse is one of my favorite Broadway composers. I grew up listening to all of his shows, Bye Birdie and Applause, It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman, Annie, so many more. I don't think there's ever a time when there's not a Charles Strouse show on my CD turntable in my house. He has come out with a memoir about his life on Broadway called Put on a Happy Face, a Broadway memoir, and I'm very happy that it has brought Charles Strouse to our show today. Welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
And thank you for sitting at the piano for us.
Where else?
So whenever the spirit moves you, you can just tickle the ivories.
Yeah.
So Charles, let's start at the beginning of your career. You had the great fortune to study with Nadia Boulanger in Paris,
Yes.
one of the great piano teachers of all time.
Well, composition teacher, actually.
How did that come about? You were a young kid from New York, and you wind up in Paris with this famous teacher.
Well, I studied before that. It wasn't the beginning of my career, but among the teachers I had, Aaron Copeland. I worked with Aaron for 3 years.
Wow.
And he got me a scholarship to work with Nadia, Madame Boulanger, and so I went to Paris for a year.
Were you intimidated by her? Was she a tough taskmaster in composition?
She was, how do you explain her? She was a musical psychiatrist. She had an uncanny ability when you were playing something to somehow say, that's you. This other is Stravinsky or somebody else you're trying to copy, but this is you. And like a good psychiatrist, you left feeling with a certain confidence about even trivial things you'd written, that she was listening to the real person. And I've heard this from other composers too, and she told me I had a talent for light music. That was
the beginning of...
Well, it was something I was quite ashamed of. I used to do things as jokes in music school. I went to a very impressive music school.
The Eastman School in
the
Rochester,
Eastman
right?
School of Music. But, you know, I played in cafes and jazz and all. And
But in your mind, what did you aspire to when you were a kid?
I think in my mind I aspired to be a serious... I mean, I think of myself as a serious composer, even though I'm known for a lot of light pieces. But I aspired to be Lenny Bernstein and Aaron. He was a great hero to me, and I got to know Lenny during my life, and those were where my aspirations led. I orchestrated, I worked as an orchestrator in the movies, that kind of thing. And then,
do you have anything at your fingertips of a light piece you wrote when you were young that you know you were fooling around or playing around?
I don't know whether I could get through it, but
if you could give us a little bit
yeah,
early Charles Strouse.
If I can play a little bit of his room. Etc. I can't
Did
play.
I detect a bit of the opening of Possibilities in the very beginning? The little part you were playing there?
Not, yes, you know, I mean, in the sense, well, it's tonal music. I hit some of the same keys, but I hadn't expected to play that naturally. But I wrote that when I first started music school. After that, because I started to write music when I went to music school that was very Hindemith and Bartok and all, and my parents used to sit there just as you did, Rose, and go.
And so Boulanger, she picked that up in you, and she said you.
She picked it up, but in grander pieces that I was writing, I was working on, a movement of a symphonic work. I was working on a 2-piano sonata, all of that kind of thing. And but she also asked me to. She said, "When you were a little child, what did you do?" And I said, "Well, when did you start?" And I said, "Well, I wrote little ditties which amused when my brother went into the Navy and he came in on shore leave once, I wrote a song called Welcome Home, Able-Bodied Seaman Strouse." And
can you play that one?
And she said, "Play it for me." I said, "I couldn't. But I'm really, play it." So I did that, and then she said, "What else?" And I had written a song called Moon Over 83rd Street with Shrafts right below. It would have no bearing on her life, but she said, "Play it." So I played it, and then she started to absorb my personality, which I didn't absorb. I was ashamed of every way I turned, the way I looked, the way I ate, the way I wrote music and all that. And she was very instrumental in straightening me out in saying, this reflects your personality in a way. And
did you write lyrics then too? Were you writing the words?
Well,
for these?
this is really child stuff, yes. But I have written lyrics. And as you pointed out, I wrote a book, which was a big surprise to me. And I had a show in New York called Mayor, which I wrote the lyrics as well as the music. A man by the name of Jerry Kravitz, a close friend of mine who just passed away, produced it.
Didn't Warren Light write Mayor?
Ryan,
yes.
Well, he wrote the talking material.
Right,
between,
and Nancy Giles was in it. Right.
Whatever.
Right. Do you have a little Moon Over 83rd Street? Is that still up?
Moon over 83rd Street, with Shrafts right below. Moon over 83rd Street, my heart's all aglow. You, Janet, in the lamplight, I hear something call. Moon over 83rd Street, I'm yours, body and soul. And that's all I remember.
That's
I
beautiful.
wish I told you.
Romantic.
That's
I was in love with a
beautiful.
girl by the name of Janet.
That's a beautiful song, though, I have to say. You should have stuck with the lyric writing, too. Those aren't bad lyrics. So your first big hit on Broadway.
Bye Bye Birdie.
Bye Bye Birdie, right, which you wrote with
Lee Adams.
Lee Adams,
and
a
Mike
wonderful,
Stewart,
wonderful lyricist, and Mike Stewart, who's a terrific book writer.
And lyricist. Yeah.
How did that come out of your writing sort of sketch material in clubs in the village? And
It did, because a lot of the sketch material that Lee and I and Mike and I wrote went into a review called the Shoestring Review. Excuse me. And I was playing rehearsal piano for a show called Saratoga with Carol Lawrence and Howard Keel, and I was in the pit. And the stage manager of that show had seen Shoestring Review, and by the way, everyone used to call me Buddy. The Charles came later in life through my marriage and all that.
And with all the Tony Awards and the success.
Yeah, my wife insisted that, hey, come on, you're a Charles now, and she made me change, but that's a whole other program. And the stage manager of Saratoga was a man by the name of Padula, and I remember vividly, he leaned over the pit of the theater where I was slaving away and said, "Buddy, would you be interested in doing a musical?" I was so interested in doing a musical because a lot of my friends, notably Sheldon Harnick and Jerry Bach, had gotten musicals on, and I'm kind of slaving away playing, 7, 8, 9, 10 from the tango section, go. So I was desperate to, and he took me to lunch, and he told me he had this idea about...
it was an original musical, Bye Bye Birdie. It's not based on a book.
I have been very fortunate, and it has been unique, that in my career, if you count Superman and Annie and Bye Birdie, I've been the composer of all original musicals. Most adaptations are, even Nick and Nora
Right.
was an original. It was not taken from any specific movie, the characters.
Now, when you wrote, when you were writing Bye Birdie, what was the, is when Julie Stein used to like to say, you know, he knew when he'd written a hit song. Did you know that Put on a Happy Face from that show was the hit song?
No.
There was a song you wrote that you thought was going to be the hit that wasn't?
Well, as a matter of fact, that was the song that I wanted to take out of the show.
Put on a Happy Face?
Yeah, in fact, it was one of the few arguments we had. It was a lot of fun writing Birdie, particularly, but Gower staged a big number in a television studio, something like the one we're in now, where Van Dyke, who was a newcomer, was going to have this big number, and he was setting up the lights for the appearance of Birdie, and so he would say yellow, green, and put on a happy face because there was a problem in the show. And he staged a lavish number, and Dick was his usual rubbery, wonderful self, and it failed. That simply, and the applause at the end of the show was very mild for Dick. He wasn't really making it. And so I said, let's get a new number. And it was Marge Champions who said, wait a second, I know what we can do with this number. And she had the idea to sing it to two sad girls at the station when Birdie was leaving. And I was very ashamed of that because virtually the first number was going to be a tap dance with two little girls. And I was kind of out of music school, and I thought, gee, I don't want this. But anyway, Marge is the one who insisted, and
that's a pretty inspired choice. Yeah,
Can we have a little
it was a great choice.
and of course, as many people know, Bye Birdie is based on the Elvis going in the army.
Yeah,
and so a lot of the rest of the score is your parody of 50s rock music.
Yeah.
Put on a Happy Face as a standard.
And the show came into being after he was released from the Army. That's how tough it was to get money even then. And that show cost, I believe it was $185,000.
The whole thing to produce.
Yeah.
That's not even the running cost of a two-character play these days.
I know.
Can we have a little Put on a Happy Face?
Oh, Gray skies are gonna clear up. Put on a happy face. Brush off the clouds and cheer up. Put on a happy face. Take off that gloomy mask of tragedy. It's not your style. You look so good that you'll be glad you decided to smile. Shall I go on?
Please.
You got a pleasant outlook. Stick out that noble chin. Wipe off that full of doubt look. Slap on a happy grin. And spread sunshine all over the place. Just put on a happy face.
Bravo, wonderful.
Thank you.
We got to take a minute to talk about Lee Adams, who wrote that wonderful lyric and so many great lyrics with you. How did you meet Lee, and how did you guys work together when same wavelength there?
We've known each other. He's my best friend. You know, not many people you can say that about, but he's the man that I know. I think we all have somebody like that in our lives.
Susan.
And we met actually through a friend, a mutual friend who went to Ohio State with Lee. Mm-hmm. Lee was a English major, then later went to journalism school at Columbia. Mm-hmm. And we simply hit it off. I was a working piano player, so to speak, and I had written some stuff, but we just kind of liked each other. But I'm playing around in saloons and strip clubs and all that kind of thing.
Really? You played in strip clubs?
Oh, yeah. I've had a, when I look back, because I wrote it in a book, I never kept a diary or anything, see, but as I went to page 12 or something, I said, you know, I was playing in a strip club.
So the strip clubs are here in Put on a Happy Face, your biography.
Yes, I put everything in.
Good.
Lauren Bacall said to me, I just happened to speak to her yesterday, she said, did you write about the time you made a pass at me? And
yes, did you, Charles?
I asked my wife. I do remember being. Not that you have to be drunk, but I said to Betty, I'm quoting myself. I said, "What straight man sitting on a sofa with Lauren Bacall wouldn't make a pass at her?" So
how did she respond?
I don't know, with disgust, I think.
But you wrote her some good stuff with in Applause, though.
It was great fun. She's a wonderful woman. I know you know her well, and
Yeah.
Betty, as everybody calls her, is the hardest working, most dedicated actor I've ever been. She's tough.
Yeah.
She's nails, but she is terrific.
Would you give us a little of the theme song from Applause? Again, a lyric by Lee Adams, who we were just talking about. We'll go back to in a minute. Yeah.
I'll just play part of it.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's please. What is it that we're living for? Applause, applause. Nothing I know brings on the glow like sweet applause. You're thinking you're through, that nobody cares, when suddenly you hear it starting, and somehow you're in charge again, and it's a ball. Trumpets all sing, life seems to swing, and you're the king of it all, 'cause you've had a taste of the sound that says love. Applause, applause, applause.
You sing it better than Betty.
Well,
Bob Franklin, right?
That's
Betty
my
Bacall.
12 o'clock key. That's not
Exactly.
what.
What was so interesting about the way you and Lee Adams write is that you have this wonderful, swing and jazz feel to so much of you, right? And I think that Lee was able to capture that as well in his
Lee's a
lyrics.
real jazz aficionado, more than I was.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But
so when you were writing, was he pushing you in this sort of jazz direction?
no, what it was Lee and I were, and still are, like a good marriage. He was very giving to me, very supportive of me, and I was to him. And we're very different personalities. And when he got married, not only was I jealous, but it changed my work schedule totally. He suddenly bought a place in Connecticut, and we'd be working, and I can go on all the time. And he would say, if we stop now, I can catch the 403. And that used to get me mad. And I would say, as much as anything else, that put us on different paths, but we still love one another.
Yeah.
And if the right thing happens, as I mentioned before, we have a show called Marty, which is in the wheel of Broadway. Oh. And will be done, I hope, next year. And I think he would. He's not retired. He's soured on the business.
It's a tough business.
He doesn't like many of the shows that are happening, and he doesn't want to come into town. He's a great reader, and that's it.
Really, a wonderful lyricist too. You and I spoke a few months ago about possibility of a revival of a show of yours I really love, Golden Boy, based on the Clifford Odets play, which you wrote for Sammy Davis Jr.
That's right.
And I remember you telling me that writing and working with Sammy Davis Jr. was a challenge.
Yeah.
Wasn't he flying you to Las Vegas or something to write the show?
Well, he didn't fly us, but we flew out. He again, it's many of the incidents are because it was a very interesting time in my life. I had just been married, and Sammy, we had our first apartment that was more than 2 rooms. And Sammy traveled with an entourage of 7 people. And my wife, Barbara Simon, she used to think that was going to be the marriage. There were these 7 people who were always coming in there, and
and then Sammy.
Yeah, and his father was around too all the time. So it was a very tight relationship, a very uncomfortable as well as comfortable relationship. We got to be great friends when we went down to Selma to march for civil rights, which we did. And in that trip, I took a plane in a charter. I took a chartered air flight. It seated 3 people, including the pilot and Sammy and me. And I was at the time claustrophobic. I mean, seriously claustrophobic. And I said, if there's anything I've done for the civil rights movement, this is it. This is bravery beyond, I mean, although we had to face some guns and all of that kind of thing. And during that trip, we shared a bottle of brandy, I remember that. And for the first time, Sammy opened up to me and I to him, and I grew to like him very much. But before that, he didn't, I felt, relate to me. I mean, we would go out to Las Vegas to play him a song, and he would say, "I'll meet you guys at 2 o'clock in the morning." I say, "Okay." Lee is a very early to go bed person, but well, we would get there at 2, and then he would show up at 4.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Oh, well, then you would not like Sammy.
No, I can sense it now. So he was a star in his own mind as well as in reality.
Well, in reality, he was the greatest.
Yes, he was huge. He was huge, yeah.
But he would come that late with a whole flock of the girls from the chorus and waiters, and I'd play him a song that was, you know, we worked very hard on the show, and he says, "Yeah, I like that," and then he would sing it, and he said, "Hey, yeah, I'd like," and he would sing it back all wrong, but all the chorus girls would go, "Yeah, yeah." And before you know it, we were all involved in a party. And,
your wife must have loved that. Yeah.
Well, she wasn't with us all the time in Las Vegas.
Can you give us a song you would have played Sammy out there in Vegas? That
I remember one very well because it's my favorite song, and it was
your favorite song of all time that you've written.
Well, I certainly at that time it was After Birdie. It was a song that Lee and I tried to show deeper sentiments, and I used more expansive harmonies and that kind of thing. It's I wanna be with you. I'll get it in a better key. I wanna be with you. I wanna be with you. After all the nights of wanting you, lying there loving you, hating you, tonight I'm touching you, tasting you, world you're gonna see. We'll make out somehow, here's my girl and me, wrong chords, they can't hurt us now. You make me wanna sing, etc.
I love that song. It's one of the most beautiful ballads.
And I remember that in particular, playing that for Sammy with the waiters all, you know, and people talking and all that. Oh, he says, "Yeah, I want to be with you." And I mean, I'm a jazz guy, so I understood, but I really would have appreciated if he had learned the music first. And suddenly everyone's saying, "Oh, that's great! I want to be with you."
But I saw that show, and he really got it together.
He sings it beautifully on the album.
Yeah, he did. And you know, I poke a little unfairly at, but it was a book that stemmed from my memory, and I think were Sammy alive, he would agree with it. I mean, our trip to Selma was one of the most hysterical and frightening things, and you know, we got to know each other.
We're out of time, but we'll just stick around and we'll just make this a 2-part show.
I'd be flattered.
Oh, great, great. So you've seen the first part of Charles Strouse's life from his book, Put on a Happy Face, a Broadway memoir. And just stick around next week because we're going to get the second part of his career. Would you play us out with my favorite song from Golden Boy, Stick Around? Indeed, because we've asked you to stick around.
Stick around, things are gonna happen. Stick around and see. The sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun.